We're going to talk about equipment for handling of snakes, also for marking and identification for them. This can be used in a captive facility anywhere, or also in situations where the animal is going to be rescued and released back into the wild. We will go through this equipment one by one. The most efficient handling tool for snakes is this. It's called the snake hook. I'm sure people use various names or terminologies for it, but basically this is just a hook. It is available in various sizes, mainly for handling different sizes of snakes. So smaller snakes, there is a smaller hook. For larger, more heavy bodied snakes, possibly even the king cobra, or large bodied snakes like the python, they use slightly larger hooks than this, but this is a standard sized hook that you can use for most snakes that you see either in captivity or on rescue calls. It's an efficient tool to handle the animal and keep it at a safe distance away from you. This causes the least amount of stress for the snake, and it's safe for the handler as well. The second tool that we have here is something that is used to use with a snake bag, and basically this is an attachment where the bag goes onto this, and you can use this to handle, basically bag a snake, put it inside the bag without having to touch it, handle it in the true sense of the word in any form. The various sizes of this available, you get them ready-made for different sizes of snakes as well. Some of us fashion this thing out of material that is available in the house. So you can use a tennis racket and sort of remove the gutting of the tennis racket and use this with a bag attached to it. Some people get it fashioned like this, and we'll move on to most important equipment that we have, which is a bag. You get these in various sizes as well, and most of us actually have these stitched for use. So a captive facility or people working with snakes for rescue purposes generally have these stitched. It's important for this to be escape proof and safe in every manner, because this is where the snake is going to be for a certain amount of time, and you don't want it either to escape or bite out of this material. This can be, generally this has a double stitching, so that there are several snakes, like the most common rat snake, and they like to bury and they push their heads against any corner that is there. So the least amount of corners that are available, the better it is, because they will not open the stitching and then stick their head out and escape. Cobras also try to do that, so you want to keep them safe inside during the time of transport. And they always have a hook at the other end, so you never have to touch a bag once the snake is secured inside and it's tied off at this end, and you have the snake inside. If you handle it from both ends, you will never have to touch the area where the snake is, and therefore you're safe. Once the bag is used, it should always be cleaned before the next rescue or the next handling, so that the smell that is left behind, the pheromones that are left behind by the snake, are not deterrent to any other snake that is going to be put inside the bag. An equipment that is used commonly but should be used with discretion and a great amount of care is this. It's called, colloquially everyone calls it the grab stick, and that's because that's literally what it does. It grabs whatever is in its way. But it's a spring operated grab stick, and very often when you have an animal which is inside this grab stick and it moves, the chances are that you will exert more pressure on this, and that could possibly cause grievous injuries to the snake, because this doesn't have a locking mechanism. But there are newer grab sticks available now that come with a locking mechanism, so there is a slight gap and it will not completely crush the body of the snake or cut it, but those are more expensive, much harder to get. This is more commonly available. They also come with paddings at both sides, and that is considered to be safer. But one without a locking mechanism, which looks exactly like this, should be used with a lot of care and discretion. These are three very simple looking, readily available materials. These are PVC pipes, of course. They have been fashioned for safe capture of the snake, and this is very good to use in the field when you're just trying to get the snake from a location into a bag, and the bags are generally attached to this for safe capture. But in terms of visibility, in terms of safety, these are very good because the snake feels safe while going in. It's mostly dark, there's no light passing through, so there is a safety advantage here. The snake feels secure. So it's very good when you're trying to capture it, but these cannot be used as restraint tubes. There is something called as a set of restraint tubes. You get it in several sizes that allow you to handle the snake without actually handling it. It's the safest way to examine the snake. Once the snake is pushed inside of this, let us assume that this is the snake, and once the snake goes inside and you restrain the animal, you can do any kind of checking, any kind of visual examination without having to worry about what the head is doing. In most circumstances, the restraint tube is made of clear plexiglass, and you can always even examine visually the presence of eye caps, any kind of mouth discharges, mouth rot, anything that's wrong with the teeth. Everything can be done with the transparent plexiglass tube. They look exactly like this, but except the fact that they are transparent. The reason to use different sizes of tubes for capture is it's safer, much safer for handling, so that when a snake goes inside this tube, there are very little chances of it reversing and coming back. So pythons, large-bodied snakes go through here, elapids, rat snakes, so on go through here, and smaller snakes can go through this. You can also have more varied sizes depending on what kind of snakes you're going to work with. Okay. When we're doing identification of snakes, the best way and the most comprehensive and foolproof way of doing it is for identification of species. You will do something as a snake count, a scale count, and these are the scales that you have, and you can do scale counts in two ways, where you go from this side to this side, either in a V or around the body of the snake. And this is done at 3 parts, just behind the neck, mid-body, and at the tail. You also count all the dorsal scales, and all this is available in a written format, and these scale counts are available that help you identify individual species. But if you're going to identify individual animals of the species, then the way to do that is with permanent marking. Now again, there are several ways in which permanent marking can be done. A way that has been used for a very, very long time is cutting the dorsal. These are the belly scales, and you can cut the dorsal belly scale and create a mark here, and it helps, it leaves a mark, but it's not a permanent marking system. It helps you identify the animal, and generally the scale will grow back with molts that happen. They will grow back in the next 4 to 6 months. So it's not a permanent system of marking, but for any temporary purpose, you can use this system. It requires a little bit of training so that you don't cause any injury to the snake while doing the scute clipping. And ideally, you would use a sharp scissor which has a bend, and you would be able to do that much easier than with a scalpel blade. The other system that was used previously is a cautery agent. So you could cauterize these scales, but it's not used anymore because it's considered to be slightly more invasive than the other techniques. And if you're not trained on how to use it, you can cause serious injury. Those cautery systems used to last for up to 6 months to a year, even with the molds, and the healing time is also a little more is a little longer than the other systems of marking. So for any captive facility or for any animal study, if you're going to be studying animals in the wild and you want to just identify them, you can use this system, which is the passive integrated transponder tag system. And this is the applicator with a needle, and it looks intimidating, but it's not, because what it does basically is a delivery device for a PIT tag, which is a small rice grain sized device that is inserted under the skin. And once you read this, it gives you a 15-digit alphanumeric code, which is an independent individual marking for every snake that comes there. This is an applicator and it gets a separate needle, so they're different devices, but the actual reader and the PIT tag device is the same. One other interesting marking system that can be used and is very easily done is used now currently mainly for pythons, and that's using your basic digital camera. So if you are doing python rescues, or if you have pythons in captivity at your zoo or any other facility, if you are able to photograph the head of the python up to say 1/3 down, you are able to get an individual pattern, and that's like a fingerprint. Every pattern on every python is different, and you can use that. You can make a photographic documentation of the pythons you have, and that will tell you every individual marking which is different from the others. So these are independent individual marking handling systems for the snake, and that's it. We're going to talk about capturing crocodiles, and one of the first things before you capture the crocodile is for you to know where it is. Now situations can vary whether you're looking at crocodiles in the wild or crocodiles in a captive facility. In the wild, before you actually plan the capture, you need to know where the crocodile is. So you can do that in two ways: when you do surveys during the day to find out what areas the crocodile is inhabiting, like where does it like to bask, where does it like to sit, and at night by using a simple torch with a good light, you can actually do something called as an eye shine when you see where the crocodile is hanging out at night, and you are going to be able to capture it. Crocodile eyes have something called as a tapetum lucidum, which is very similar to the reflective layer that is there in mammalian eyes. So when you shine a light, it reflects back to you and you will see an eye shine, and that helps you identify where the crocs are, where they are hanging out, and then a capture can be planned. Now capturing a crocodile in the wild is a very different ball game. There are various methods that you can use, whether it's a net or a trap cage or a baited trap, so on, and it depends on the area where the crocodile is and what situation the crocodile is in. But if you're going to do a physical capture, whether it's in a captive facility or if a crocodile has to be rescued from a situation where it is going to be in danger for itself or the people around, the most common things that you will need, depending on of course the size of the animal, is a simple bamboo stick which is going to be helping you noose the animal. There are something called as catch-all poles which are now available. It's a more sophisticated device, of course, and it's available online and you can buy it, but you need some training to handle it. It's supposed to be safe, it has a ball bearing, but you have to have some training on how to actually use the device on a crocodilian, and it gives you only a limited distance from which you can go and work with the animal. Whereas with this, the bamboo pole can be according to the size that you are comfortable and what you're going to be able to use. Along with that, you have a rope. Now, this is a cotton rope, but ideally you would use a nylon rope, because when cotton ropes become wet and they get sand in them, it's difficult for you to move your knots and it can often cause difficulty. But a nylon rope is much better for use. This is just used for demonstration, and I will demonstrate the knot. It's a knot, it's a slip knot that you use. So you move it around here and you pass it through here and you get this knot, and when you're trying to noose the crocodile, you're able to noose it more efficiently, and this is how you can release it. This noose, at the other end you will have a knot which goes around the bamboo pole, and with that sorted, you have your own homemade device for catching a crocodile. When you are catching a croc with these devices, couple of things that you need to remember is which species it is, because they have integumentary sense organs on their jaws. So when you're noosing the animal, if your noose is not set correctly and it continues to touch the jaw, the croc is going to run away and escape, and it's not going to be easy to catch it once it's gone. Once the animal is caught, using this, you have your rubber bands. You can get duct tape if you like, but these are inner tube rubber bands that have been fashioned. They're very good, they're sturdy, strong, and you can get them for various sizes depending upon the size of inner tube that you use, and this is very secure for the mouth. It's easy to put on, easy to take off in very small animals. You could use multiple layer of these rubber bands, but these are more preferable than these. This is used to cover the body of the crocodile. It's just a Hessian sac. You cover the body of the crocodile, so if you have to sit on the animal and restrain it, you're protected. Also, it keeps the animal calmer, and if it's on the body of the crocodile, you can also wet it and make sure that the temperature, the animal doesn't overheat if you're working in the afternoon. Always have a cloth or something in cotton so that you cover the eyes of the crocodile, and put gentle pressure on the eyes so that this helps the animal calm down. Once the animal is restrained, you can do marking, which can be done by cutting the scutes of the animal, and for that you need a scalpel blade, betadine, some cotton, and you can do it aseptically using gloves. Marking of the crocodile is done using PIT tagging. You've already scute clipped, so your backup system is the PIT tag, where with the applicator you push it under the scutes on the dorsal side of the tail where the tail starts, and then you read the PIT tag and it gives you an alphanumeric, 15-digit alphanumeric code and an individual identity for the crocodile. All this, of course, is of value. After your catching procedure, your marking, all this is of value if your data is recorded in the standard format, and it is available for people to use, whether it's in the same research project or down the line in a captive facility where you know which animal it is, you know the history of the animal, you know how much it is eating, how much it has grown, how many times has it mated if it's a male, or how many times it has given eggs and had successful hatchlings if it's a female. So all this is utilized only if your data is maintained meticulously. Once all this is done, the procedure is reversed. You remove the covering on the eyes, you remove the rubber bands, last you remove the rope, and then you let the animal go back into the water. Before the animal goes back into the water, you have to make sure that you don't push it into the water, because generally when there is a stressful procedure or a procedure like you've captured it for something, you've transported it somewhere, you need to make sure that the acid buildup that happens in the muscle is actually washed out by the crocodile itself. So give it time, let it stay on land, do not release the animal in the water, and certainly don't try to push it into the water. Let it take its time to go in the water by itself, because if you push it into the water, if you force it to go into the water, the acid buildup in the muscle can later become dangerous and the animal can also drown.